size and your storage space. For seamless compatibility with Windows 10, rather opt for PDF format, still keeping the file size between 5 MB to 25 MB, and also considering the potential volume of multiple documents. By adhering to these guidelines and utilizing our official RAF channels, you're not just helping us speed up the process, but also ensuring a smooth journey towards the finalization of your claim. Help us to help you. Let's together drive your claim forward. The Road Accident Fund is here to support you every step of the way. Contact us on
Ready? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Macintosh Polela. I'm the head of corporate communication at the Road Accident Fund. Today, the CEO called a media briefing to address members of the media about the launch of our backlog campaign. I understand that apart from the journalists that are on the floor, we've got SABC, we've got ENCI, we've got City Press, and others that are joining us online. Welcome to you too. In front, it's the CEO who's wearing the white shirt. Letsoalo is the CEO of the Road Accident Fund. On his left is a member of the executive team, Mampi Kumalo. On the right is Sifutli Modiba, who's also a member of the executive team. And next to him is Mr. Patu Lukoreni. This is not my day. The CEO called this, and let's start. To you, CEO. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Mark. Thanks to members of the media. Let me say greetings to you all. Greetings to those ones who are listening home, here others are online, so we also pass those. Hope you had a very good day yesterday. You can imagine we have been working, trying to put this together. But I thought it's important that we call you here because we are getting inquiries all the time about certain things, and I think it's important that we have these engagements time and again. We need to deal with a couple of issues, and I think it's important. People would have seen the cabinet statement that came out last week. And they were being asked a lot of questions because people tend to misinterpret what is there. It would seem that when there are positive news about the RAF, something goes amiss, people lose their pens. When say something interesting, or what they will call interesting, is that if there is something negative about the RAF, of course everyone writes about it at length. Even when those things don't have merits, people find merits in them. But needless to say, we note with the cabinet statement that acknowledged our achievement over the last 4 years of our strategy. And we're also mindful of the challenges that will only be resolved by changes in legislation, as proposed by the now published draft amendment bill, which Cabinet undertook to hand over to the 7th Administration for processing. We also note that there has been various court challenges on what we have been doing, but I think most importantly is the issue around the RAF Form 1, the issue around the foreigners and the information that we require from foreigners who are claimants at the Road Accident Fund. We also note that over the last 2 years, 2 financial years, we have missed our ambitious target to settle 3 years and older claims, and in 20% of those. And our target at the end of the 5 years, that would have had at least halved the backlog that we had. Now, the challenges that we see as the Road Accident Fund have been the information that is not in these files. So today, we are launching a campaign called Drive Your Claim Forward, which is aimed at reducing the backlog for claims submitted before April 2021. The objective of the campaign is to inform, educate draft claimants about the documents required in order to process and finalize their claims. Through the campaign, claimants will be educated about documents required for each claim, how to submit outstanding document, and where to go for further information. The anticipated outcome of this campaign is that the RAF will process and finalize more claims, thus significantly reducing the waiting period for some of the claimants that had to endure these long periods. The call for the outstanding documents ensures that the RAF has the necessary documents and details that inform it of what is being claimed for, setting out the basis for the claim in order to allow the RAF to investigate and ultimately pay the claim. Various reasons may delay the claim process, but through this campaign, the RAF seeks to ensure that in doing everything that in the organization power to minimize delays and assist all claimants. This is a call to action to the claimants. We say this in the background of where we have opened a call center. The number 087-820-1111. We have put together an SMS code where people can actually send SMSs to 44930, and of course setting up that email address at contactcenter@raf.co.za. That claimants can even at this point request to be called back by the RAF that we launched in the preceding year. People may ask, what has led to the delays in processing of some claims? And it is mainly outstanding documents to support a claim. The RAF needs additional information from the claimant or the claimant's attorney to support the claim they have submitted to the RAF Form 1. I need to explain this part because people don't usually understand it. So, Section 24 of our Act expects people to put in a claim, which claim must be on a prescribed form, which usually RAF Form 1. And of course, there are other forms that people would fill, depending on, for instance, if you've got a serious injury, RAF 4 will also be filled, as it were. And I think it's important to note this. Now we have got about 60 days to validate the claim. 60. from the date it's either posted or the date the RAF has received it. Now, there is a funny clause in our Act, I think it's section 24.5. Maybe I must read it so that people get to understand what it means. It says, if the fund or the agent does not within 60 days from the date on which a claim was sent by registered post or delivered by hand to the fund, or such an agent as contemplated in subsection 1, object to the validity thereof, the claim shall be deemed to be valid in law in all respects. Now you can imagine, there are people that have actually submitted claims already at the Road Accident Fund. They were never, the validation was never done. What it means is that they are deemed to be valid in all respects in law. Now, it can't go crazier than that, of course. I mean, what it means is you can just submit an empty claim. If we didn't validate it and in 60 days come back to you and say this is invalid, that would mean that this is valid in all respects in law. Then someone says, but how can that be? I don't know. I didn't write the act, so you must ask the ones that wrote it. But what is the implication? The implication is that I'm sitting with a backlog of claims that are valid in all respects in law. And we've been phoning people for the past 3 years telling them bring the documents. They don't, because they're waiting to bring summons, and those summons will end up in judgments of some sort. So you could actually put in a claim with no accident report. So there's no nexus between your injury and the claim that you would have. And of course, if we don't do anything in 60 days, it's valid in all respects in law. The question we must ask is, if it's valid in all respects in law, what does that mean? Okay, so we have a lot of those claims, right? And you would have thought that these claims would have been claims that were brought in by lawyers only, meaning represented claims. No. Even the ones that RAF used to go and get, which was called direct claims, okay? They don't have the minimum information. And we've been calling people to come to give us that information, and they're not doing it. Now, there are two things you can do. You can just go and repudiate all of them. And then, of course, the fourth estate will be coming and say, but you've been unfair to these people by just telling them. And that's why we are driving this campaign forward, to say, we've been saying it for the past 3 years, by the way, phoning lawyers, because 97% of all those backlog are actually represented, right? So that's why we brought the RAF Form 1. So people will ask why this RAF Form 1 was brought. Is because of this very same thing, because if we do not have that information, we can't validate. And if we don't validate, it is deemed to be a claim in all respects in law. I don't know, in all respects in law means even if you fell from your roof and you claimed from us and we sit there and in 60 days we have not validated, it means it's valid. That's what the law says. It's not me, it's written in there. So that is why we brought this RAF Form 1. But why would you not want to give us the information? Right, so I have short-term insurance, and I'm told that if I don't report a car accident, that my car is crashed in 24 hours or 48 hours at the police station and I don't have a case number, that claim is repudiated. At the Road Accident Fund, we have got 3 years to give us all that information. They still don't want to give us that information. And of course, there are people that then tend to agree with them. And of course, this is onerous. What is onerous? We're asking for what you should bring. There's nothing. If you're involved in an accident, we want to know it happened. You get an accident report form, you bring it to us. You got injured, you go to hospital, you've got all that information. Why are you not giving to us? If you have buried someone, you know how much you have paid, give us the invoice. That's all we're asking for. Now, we're almost expected to deal with this backlog with our hands tied at the back because the people just don't bring the information. Now, what have we picked up? Sometimes we've picked up that there are, of course, lawyers who will have that information. They are given by the claimant that information. It just doesn't get to us because it makes sense. The lawyer, we must call him. By the way, when he receives the call, he goes to his invoicing and he starts saying, received a call from RAF, 2 minutes. I don't know how much is it per minute. Okay, then they bill. Then they say called the hospital, bill. Wrote an email, bill. So for them, it makes sense. For us, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, we must have all that information. So this is the reason why we introduced the RAF Form 1 in July 2022. It is not anything, it has nothing to do with us not wanting to pay. We want to pay people. The ones that don't want to give us the information don't want us to assess. And we have seen this. You must check all the cases that have actually went to the North Gauteng High Court about us refusing to receive forms. And ask yourself when the lawyer actually got that information. We have 3 years. Most people don't wait for 3 years. A lot of claimants in year 1 have already gone to the lawyer and said, we've been injured, here are the things and all that. You will see when they bring it. A week before prescription, they then bring it. And then suddenly it's urgent because we are refusing. No, we can't give this. Where is the accident report? Where is this? Where is this? Where is that? No. The RAF is being onerous. They have received this thing 2 years back from the claimant. I can assure you. Then, of course, they know that in terms of the agreement, they are given a power of attorney. They abuse it. In that power of attorney, I don't think that the claimant would have said, take them to court for not bringing the information. But because it said, do everything and anything ancillary there to actually push this claim, they use that to then take us to court. Right? Strangely, some of their judgments have agreed with them. We don't know how. But I mean, that's why we're appealing some of those judgments, because we don't understand why when we need to help people, there would be a problem. If you know this claim is valid, you need all the information. In any event, this thing is based on the law of delict. So when you submit a delictual claim, you are expected in law to finish all particulars of claim. Everyone will tell you that. But when it comes to the RAF, no. The RAF must be told, one day you're going to be shocked. We'll release certain things that we are finalizing quite soon. Because, of course, there are views out there, okay? We respect those ones that sit in the other areas of the state or other arms of the state, as it were. But I think it's important that when we look at these things, we also apply our minds. Okay? We apply our minds. We don't want to be criticizing. But when you sit with some of our honorable judges, who sometimes also settle plaintiff attorneys, there is a difficulty there. We have found those difficulties. We also know that sometimes we take certain things somewhere and we know. Once we see on the other side, at the bench, there's someone sitting, we know the outcome. We already know that, no, we have lost this one, so let's look at appeal. Why is it the case? We don't know, but I'm just saying those are the issues. Then the second issue, let's then deal with the issue around foreigners. Okay? The claimant that got the highest payout out of the road accident fund. I think it is 512 million, if it's not 19 million. It's a Swiss national. 500 million at that time, a Swiss national. Now, I'm sure that those who drafted this piece of legislation did not intend that this must benefit foreigners to a greater extent. That's fine, there's nothing wrong. By the way, we have got our brothers and sisters that passed on coming from Botswana, who we are assisting as well, because they crossed the border, they were here, and the law says all people that have entered in the borders of South Africa. Mampi says legally, it's not written here. There's a judge that says any person, as prescribed in there, will even mean an illegal foreign. That's a judgment, right? I don't think that those that wrote this and passed it through at that time thought any person means even someone who's illegally here. But that's not our point as the RAF, and people try to make it about our points. Our point, as the RAF was saying, it says within the Republic. How do you know you were here if we can't get some form of confirmation that you were in the Republic? And that's what we're asking for. We say, give us a stamped passport. How can that ever be difficult? You give us a stamped passport that says I was in the country, and when you left, it tells us he left at this point, so we know that this accident happened during this period, and therefore you were here. Okay? That's what the RAF Act says, so we follow the RAF Act. Then, of course, there is the Immigration Act that says no one, actually there is no person, shall aid and abet an illegal foreign. No person. And if I take this lateral interpretation, it might even mean no judge. If I was just crazy, I would say that. But no person, you can't just interpret it literally like that. Okay, so literally like that, you must apply your mind to it. But it says no person. But no person must include a lawyer. So if someone arrived in this country illegally, you aid and abet, it must mean you are excluded from doing that in the Immigration Act. But it's worse, okay? Section 44 of the Immigration Act says organ of state. It says as an organ of state, when you are serving someone that is a foreigner, you are expected to know the status. And if you can't confirm that status, you must actually go back and say, I can't confirm that status, but you must actually report it to the Department of Home Affairs. Wow. So RAF is expected to do that. It's an organ of state, right? We know that. It's expected to do that. So how do we know your status when we don't ask for that information? It's a very strange thing. We are told that we must ignore that provision. I don't know what that means, but and this is why we are appealing that as well. We are saying, no, but that's unfair. I don't think that's expected. And I'm saying this for I don't know how many times. When we go to Europe, you need a Schengen visa. You're expected to arrive there with your own medical insurance and your own travel insurance. You won't even get it. It's a prerequisite to get into Europe. That's a developed country. We have about 4 other claims, if not 5. We've got 3 of Belgian nationals that were students at VETS at some point, who are claiming 153 million each. 153 million each. I don't know of any South African that has been injured that has been ever paid more than 15 or 20 million. I don't even know about that. Someone wants 153 million, and we've got an American citizen who was not even injured at the time. What happened is that the partner got injured, and she says, I suffered psychological impact when I heard about that. And she's now also claiming 150 million from us. Now, you must ask yourself whether South Africa, as a developing country, can afford what developed countries can't afford. And that's all we are saying. We are saying there's nothing wrong with us saying to people, please bring your travel insurance. And that's what is the Amendment Act. Of course, for now, we say, please enter legally. When you are there here legally, because we want to know your status. We can't aid and abet you, okay, if you are illegally here. Is that what Section 42 of the Immigration Act says? People can go and set it aside. It's not set aside, it's there. So we must actually adhere to that provision. We must adhere to Section 44 as well, as it is. But it's time for South Africans to come out. It can't be us that are defending the coffers of the RAF. When you guys are putting a social benefit scheme, they say it must go to everybody, even people that have entered illegal. It can't be. And we have been told that don't confirm. Even if the law says confirm that this person is here, how did this person come here? The status of that person must be confirmed. They are saying, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't confirm. You are creating problems. People want to claim. Let's continue working that way. I had a question that said, but RAF has always done it like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we say it's wrong because we read the law. I can't go and say, well, my predecessors were doing like that, the law. Someone says, but Section 44, I say, I ignore that. The person that was here before did it for the last 10 years this way. I'm going to do it this way. It does not work like that. Okay? So I don't think that is fair on us. We are going to be running this campaign, and this is why we have invited you guys here, because we believe very strongly that you should be helping us in getting that information. Our target is to ensure that we service the claimant. Since we have opened the call center, we have received more than 380,000 contacts, either through email. I think about 289,000 is calls. Then emails, and of course other forms of that. And we have resolved at least 95% of those. Others are still needing resolution. But that's the aim. The aim is to make sure that we do this. And South Africans may not be aware, and I keep on saying this. When you have signed this contingency fee agreement, the lawyer is entitled to have 25% or their costs, whichever is lower. So don't be told that, no, a quota goes to them. No. Check, what are your costs? But think about it. He wants this cost to be higher. He wants the cost to be higher. It's the way that it works. So if he brings the case here and we settle it in 120 days, how much would he have billed? So understand that. And it must give you a context of why people would not necessarily give us this, and that's why you must actually follow up as the claimant. That's the first part. But secondly, people don't know that once that you have paid that 25%, there's a thing called party costs, meaning your actual legal costs that you are actually entitled to, that RAF pays. I can assure you, a lot of people out there don't know that, because I don't think they received that money from the lawyers. Go and find out about your party costs. Phone the call center and ask how much party costs were paid on my transaction, and go and check whether you received that money from the lawyer. And if you don't, please call the call center again and then tell us, so that we can assist you to get your money back. Going back to those days, 2002 at least, go and check, because we are picking up that these things people are not being given. Okay, I just received a certain thing where someone claimed some tour. Is it what? It's about 2 million. and only paid some ridiculous amount that is less than 1,000, that money. It's less than 1,000, eh? Yeah, we have it. There's a lawyer, we know, we are dealing with that. That lawyer also has taken us to court, by the way, and said, these guys, by the way, I'm also supposed to go to prison for, what do they call it? Contempt of court. It's funny. I'm always being sent for contempt of court on things that I know nothing about, in my personal capacity. People say I must take my children's money and defend this thing. If not, then I must be subjected to prison for some time, when I have never been even served these documents. Because they can't be served on me. It's the Road Accident Fund versus whoever, or whoever versus the Road Accident Fund. My name, I don't know why it keeps on appearing. And for me, that is quite problematic. But it's something that we are, of course, working on. We are looking at all these issues. Which one is the last one? I think the discovery issue. I don't think that I want to tell much on it. It's a matter that is in front of the courts. Medical aids by law are social benefit schemes. People don't know that, and I'll explain why people, the difference between it and medical insurance, okay? Medical insurance is on the basis of risk. If you think about your contribution, they don't tell you, they don't ask you, do you have high blood, do you have what, and then charge you. No. If you belong into this option, you pay all the same. Whether you are 65, whether you are 20, you'll pay all the same amount, right? So it has got social benefit scheme attributes in it, and by itself is a medical. It's a very interesting thing, and I think you must go and look at it. I think it was in 2013 when the regulations were published. Go and take a discovery submission. They themselves say we are actually a social benefit scheme, and they explain. They explain. Go and check it. But today they are saying no. In a clandestine way, they hire a lawyer. I know a certain law firm. We know it. They hire that law firm and they say, Mampe, go to that lawyer and claim from RAF, and once you receive that money, pay to us. Let me read you section 19D of the Road Accident Fund Act. It says liability excluded in certain cases, and it says the fund or an agent shall not be obliged to compensate any person in terms of section 17 for any loss or damage. D says where the third party has entered into an agreement with any person other than the one referred to in paragraph C1, C Roman figure 1 and 2, in accordance with which the third party has undertaken to pay such person after the settlement of the claim, Roman figure 1, a portion of the compensation in respect of the claim. And the people that are listed in C are any person entitled to practice an attorney within the Republic. That's not discovery. Any person who is in the service or who is a representative of the state or government or a provincial, territorial, or local authority. You won't never find this person in South Africa, this one, because this person does not exist. Actually, it just means a lawyer here. So, discovery says to people, sign with us a contract. Once you are paid, pay us. That contract is against this provision that says where a third party has entered into an agreement with any person under the one referred in paragraph C that I've already mentioned, in accordance with which the third party has undertaken to pay such person after settlement a portion of the compensation in respect of the claim. 100% is also a portion of the compensation. That's the law. It's not me. It's written in there. So we can go. People say, no. You went to the Constitutional Court. It said, the Constitutional Court said we don't have a jurisdiction. That's all it said. And we are going back. Because the reality is this. Discovery as a social benefit scheme can't claim from the Road Accident Fund. It can't. Because we also can't claim from them. There is an obligation that says that the prescribed minimum benefits and the emergency medical conditions have to be paid by a medical scheme with no deductions or co-payments. And they must do that. That's their job. They are paid for it, they do it. Like we do. We get a claim, we process it, and we are obliged to pay if at any point, unless we don't have money, of course. Section 21 is clear that if we don't have money, you can go and sue the wrongdoer. If RAF can't pay, it's only when the wrongdoer gets to be made to pay. But we are driving this agenda of making sure that our people get their fair entitlement and they get what the claim they are supposed to get in terms of the compensation as we are expected to compensate. And we must clarify this part as well. Where there is no wrongful conduct from a driver in the driving of a motor vehicle, the RAF is not paying. People must understand that. The person that pays the fuel levy is not the claimant. People must understand that. Because they keep on saying, no, but I paid the 218. The 218 cents is paid by a driver. If you think about it, the passenger claims, it's never paid. Right? The pedestrian claims, never paid. Okay? The child who loss of support, this child or the wife or the husband of the person that was actually working as a breadwinner will claim. Those people have never paid the 218 cents. So it is not true that the people that pay the 218 cents are the ones that are claiming from the scheme. So the 218 cents is a way of collecting. It's like a VAT. Okay, people say, no, but I pay. You say, yeah, I also pay VAT, but I don't claim from SASSA. So a social benefit scheme is exactly that. For people that can't, they get. But this one, in the way that it's structured as we are speaking about it now, it favors the rich. So if I get injured today, I'll get more money than my helper. Simply because it's loss of earnings and my earnings are higher. So that's not equitable. It's the most regressive form of social benefit we have ever seen, where rich people go for a social benefit scheme. And that's why they want to call it an insurance. One of the judges said, this has always been an insurance, it continues to operate as an insurance. Obviously. I mean, how can that ever be obvious? How can that ever be obvious? So when we give you facts as a judge, we expect you to apply yourself to those things that we gave you. Don't say obviously. You can't argue with us on the basis of obviously. That's why it's in court. It is because it's not obvious. If it was obvious, it won't be in court. It's in court because it's contested. So when you say we are a social benefit scheme, just give us the reasons. Don't say obviously. It has been from inception in its history. In its history, in 1942, this thing was started. 1946, it was there. 1950, it went belly up and they were busy investigating it already. 9 commissions down the line. In 1986, this thing collapsed for 3 months. South Africa never had cover for third-party insurance. Then is this thing that it was introduced back as a social benefit using the fuel levy. So this change changed in 1986. So we must go to our learned friends and say, look at 1986, what happened. Look at it, I think it collapsed in May, and then somewhere in September, this thing of collecting money, which is a levy. That is in terms of the money bill, which means it's collected by the state, it goes to SARS, goes into the coffers, like VAT would go into the coffers of the state. Then we use it for this purpose. So it can't be correct to say that this is a social this is an insurer, obviously. Interesting how it becomes obvious, Mac. When our own regulator must go to Directive 1, issued in 2011 by the FSB, I think it's section 2.3.3. Yeah, it says when you assess RAF, its assets and liabilities, you must take into cognizance that it's a social benefit scheme, benefit fund. It's written like that in there. So go and check it. If you disagree, please contact the Prudential Authority and say, why are you calling this thing And if you don't agree with that, there's a thing called the Public Service Classifications Committee, where I think Treasury sits, I think the Reserve Bank sits there, I don't know who else, I think Stats SA also sits there. They reassessed also, back to the same thing, social benefit fund. Go to the institutional classification guideline of the Reserve Bank. From 1999, this has been a social benefit. Go and check it, we are there. So go to social benefit, go to insurance, you'll never find us. You're going to find all mutual others, you'll never find us there. Go to social benefit funds, you're going to find us there. Yeah, so unless those things have been set aside by the judge can then say we are in insurance or insurance-like, which is nowhere in anything. So insurance-like, you won't find it anywhere in the literature. It's not there. So someone must show us when they call us insurance-like, what does that mean? And I think it's important that we look at those things from that perspective, and that's why we are not appealing for the sake of appealing. We are appealing because we believe very strongly that a case we have put forward is quite a strong case, supported by facts and the law. I hope, Meg, I've done service. I don't know whether you want to play your Tajef thing, which is an advert that we have that will be flighting. But what we want to do is to encourage our people to use this call center, to give us the information. We want to achieve our target. I think even this year we had 16-point-something%. Last year, 16-point-something%. We have done our best to try and get this information, to try and trace these individuals so that they can bring their info. So if you are out there and you are a RAF claimant, even when your lawyer says it's a RAF that is delaying, please do call us and find out whether that is true or not. Because you might find that there's just an invoice missing. You might just find out that there's just an ID copy missing, and we can actually assist you to finalize and push your claim quite quickly, because our aim is to make sure that the backlog, it's sad when you get someone who has claimed in 2023 getting their money, and someone who has claimed in 2019 can't get their money. I think we want to pay the oldest claim first. The only way we can do it is if we've got all the information at our disposal to be able to make you an offer as such. So, Mac, can I hand over back to you? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Collins. We have an advertisement that's going to be running on different television stations, many of them, I'm not going to mention them, that we have created for this call that Collins has mentioned. This is the ad.
Tajef was involved in an accident, and after
Meet Tajef. Tajef was involved in an accident, and after submitting his claim, we couldn't get a hold of him because he had changed his contact details. When his details were finally updated and his claim settled, Tajef was able to extend his house so all his children could live comfortably and pay for his daughter's fees for varsity. This was possible because he followed up on his claim, having been unemployed since his accident back in 2018. If, like Tajef, you've submitted a claim before 2021 and need to find out the status of your claim, call the Road Accident Fund on 087-820-1111 or visit raf.co.za to drive your claim forward.
Members of the media, this is the time for you to ask questions from the CEO. Please, when you ask the question, give us your name and tell us which media company you're from. But I'm going to start with a question that has come from East Coast Radio, who are watching our live stream. Collins, they're asking if, well, let me read it. My only question is, if Collins can simplify his explanation on the validation process discrepancies, because he mentioned that some invalid claims have essentially been deemed valid automatically after 60 days. Would he then say there's been damaging oversights by RAF, because I'm not understanding how an injured claimant can have their claim validated automatically after 60 days if they don't meet the criteria.
Well, I don't understand what he's not understanding. Because, a validation of a claim is quite simple. Collins gets injured today, and then he has got 3 years within which to claim. 3 years means at least 365 times 3. So leap year on the other side. If there's a leap year, of course, 366 must be added, an extra day will be added somewhere there. So the first validation process is whether this is not prescribed. So is it less than those number of days? And it ticks yes. Then there is part of information. Was it a single car accident? So if I drove into a tree on my own as a driver, I can't claim from road accident fund because there's nothing wrongful that was done by any other person. So if there was a tire burst, there's nothing wrongful about it, unless you can confirm that it came as a result of the driver doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but the reality is that it happened, it's a mistake that happened, there's nothing wrongful that was done. Now, I'm just giving synopsis of where the RAF does not cover those things. So the merits, you check the merits. Okay, granted, this person was a passenger, the driver was drunk. Granted, this person was a passenger, it's an easy claim, yeah, tick. Then we want all the information, okay? The name of the vehicle, where the accident happened, the accident report, and all that information that is in the minimum requirement list. Once we check that and we can see, then it's validated. Then it goes through to the next stage. And you can't understand why this thing is deemed to be valid in all respects in law. I can't answer that one. I'm shocked myself. So understand that this is written in the law, okay? It's when lawyers were, I remember laws are written by lawyers, by the way. So they understand we are taking this thing there. We want these guys to keep this thing. You know what they do? They just bring this empty claim. RAF must just take it, right? They must just take it. They can even have written, oh, well, for part 2, 30 million, okay? If they claim in 30 million, and you ask, so the Nexus, 30 million, this guy, the pinky was cut, you can't even validate. So the validation process, the first process is to take it. Remember, we assess. The first assessment, pre-assessment, nowadays we pre-assess on RAF Form 1. Pre-assessment is just to check whether all those documents are there. Validation is to check, okay, if you are claiming for instance, a funeral benefit, okay, we check whether what you have attached, we know the death certificate. We must check whether it's for the person that is claiming for, because it can be for any other person. So the pre-assessment can't pick that up because it's not assessing whether it's not doing that. So the validation is that though we validate it at that point in 60 days. Now you can imagine someone could have posted this thing in Cape Town to come to Main Lane. And then it might arrive at day number 61. Okay? We don't want to diss the post office, but the reality is that it's not as efficient as we expect it to be, so sometimes things do get late. In that instance, then it means it's valid in all respects in law. Okay? Sounds ridiculous. It actually is. You can't say this can be deemed in all respects in law. So it's just, it doesn't make sense, but that's how the law reads, unfortunately. So that's why we want this information so that we can validate it before it becomes valid in all respects in law. So that's, and I can understand this person saying, this does not sound right. It doesn't, but it's the law. I read it for you out of the book. So that's what it is.
Thank you. Well, before we go back online, we'll come to the floor. Sir, if you can introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Steven Siahwe from Mapepeza News Media and Inner City Gazette. I have two questions here. In the whole address, I just didn't hear how many backlog of claimants that are with the RAF that have not been processed. We just need the number so that people can just see what we are working with here. And then secondly is that most of the time when road accident fund goes to communities to go and highlight its services and all these things, they do also collect claimants information of people that have not been claimed, that have not claimed via the road accident fund, because now they are in the communities to offer those services. My issue is just that sometimes people get caught up in the jargon and the languages that you guys present to them in terms of understanding the processes. Don't you think that maybe communicating in their language, because going to communities, I've seen activations of road accident fund over many years, and one thing that I've not seen is them communicating in the language of that community they go to. So you find that it's very difficult for us, even as the media, to explain certain things that the road accident fund is doing, or might be the issues that are holding claimants' claims back. So we just want to appeal to you guys that if you can find a way to say to communities, this is what we want from you in your language, in this campaign that you are pushing, that would be appreciated, because we won't come back here in the next year, like last year. Last year was the year of the claimants. Then this year, we are going back to claimants again. Then the following year, we're going back to communicate to claimants once again. I think it's best to communicate in a language that reaches them and they know and understand. And then lastly, is just the fact of the party costs and the hidden costs is what I really came here to really get for myself, because I come from Heidelberg, which is just 100 kilometers from here, still in Gauteng. But I came with a conviction that I need to get some of these questions that people in our communities always are stopped by lawyers when they always ask. Like, what is the cost that lawyers are claiming when they do process these claims? And this is the first time, I'll tell you, a lot of people might have heard that 25% or more can be claimed by the lawyers. I feel like that can be communicated much more thoroughly and more aggressively by the fund, so that people can understand what is their relationship with their representatives. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's start with the last one. I think lawyers are creatures of instructions. The lawyer must be instructed by you what to do. They are not there to instruct you. It's the other way around. When you hire a lawyer, they work for you. They don't work for themselves. You don't work for them either. So that must be understood. They are creatures of instructions, meaning everything they do in your name. That's why their names never appear in the papers. It will be Collins Letsoalo versus Road Accident Fund. You're never going to find some lawyer's name there. And even costs, and you must understand one thing about lawyers. I was saying this to Mambi some other day. Whether they lose the case or they win it, they get the costs. They can put a very bad show up in court, they still get paid. No one, and of course, that is the way the system is in South Africa. So they get paid whether they did a good job or not. But you are the boss of the lawyer. When there are costs associated with these things, lawyers must, they create costs for themselves unless the judge says they must pay in their personal capacity, which is highly unlikely unless they've done something fundamentally wrong. So you must understand that. But that's why we have this call center. By the way, it answers these things mostly in Vernac as well. Okay? This thing is available in 11 languages, the backlog campaign. We'll be doing it, and I think one of the targets is community radio stations as well, and community media. So we the ones that are quite closer to that. Because I suppose that a lot of others that are in this other mainstream know what to do. Okay, we hope that they do, because the rough system by itself is very difficult. The lawyers themselves sometimes don't know certain things. I've learned throughout that sometimes they don't know. That's why they can tell you that R2.18 is paid by you as it's your money and all that, and the person that claims that it's not true. So the jargon. Well, this is strange, eh? This is the only system in the whole of South Africa that is social benefit scheme that is based on delict. So you actually sue the state to get your money. It's a very strange thing. Right. So because when you put in a claim, you do not just submit a claim. Listen to C, 19C, it says, if the claim consent has not been instituted and prosecuted by the third party. How do you prosecute a claim? So let's put it like this. So you come straight to RAF and you say, as a third party, I want to claim, and RAF does not do anything. Like in the past where we didn't do much until there is a court hearing. So now, here we are. We're not on trial yet. It's 120 days, and after 120 days, you must issue summons. Who can issue summons? Give me one third party that can issue summons. It's the lawyer. So you're actually pushed in that direction. So if you don't give us this thing and we do something within 120 days, you must then take us to court. To go to court, you must have a right of representation, then all that. Okay? So this system has been a system made for lawyers. Because if you look at section 19C, it's very clear. This other Roman figure 2, we can't find that person in South Africa. We don't know that person. The territorial or what, that person does not exist. So the reality is that this was done for lawyers, by lawyers. And that's the difficult. It's very, very difficult a process to navigate. That's why we're trying to simplify it. And that's why when we try to simplify it and say, make it a defined benefit fund, so that we know if you are amputated from the, below the knee, this is how much you get and all that. All of us must get the same. They don't want that. It favors the rich and the ones that can afford. So if you have got a very good lawyer that can lie a lot as well, but we also have got a very good doctor that can usually exaggerate your injuries, you will get more. And it's the likes of us that are sitting here that can afford those, and that's the reality of it. So that's the thing. The number of claims backlog 321,000 that are there. That is the total backlog, and probably about 200 or so thousand that are more than 3 years. So we are looking at that. The aim is to make sure that we deal with those claims. I know when people say, no, but they settle claims within, they will say, lawyers will say, no, but this claim is 4 years, and you must ask them. So that's fine. Did you give them all the information? When they tell you that, you must say, did you give them all the information? You're going to discover that they've not given us that. I heard the part that says last year was the year of the claimant. RAF is for the claimant, by the way. So we are doing everything in our powers to make sure that the claimant is empowered enough. What we have seen in the past was that the representatives of claimants were the ones that were empowered because they knew what was happening. The rest did not know, which is why we insisted that even if these people are represented, they can still call us. They fought with us. They say, attorney-client privilege, what. We said, no. They have got a right. If they delegate you the power, they can actually use it. That does not mean that they don't have that power. So if they want something from Road Accident Fund, we are here for them, so they must be able to call us. And that's why we insist that our people should continue to call us. And where they can afford, they must just buzz us, we'll call them back.
All right. Is there any other question? Sir?
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
Amohelo Magoleo from UFM. On this validation process, does it mean if claims that are deemed valid simply because the RAF could not validate them within 60 days, what then happens to them? Doesn't this exposes the fund to possible fraud? And if yes, has there been instances where you've settled claims for accidents that simply did not happen? And secondly, are you suggesting that there's collusion between lawyers and judges? When you made, you suggested that there's certain judges that you, how can I put it? One could say it's a foregone conclusion that if it's this judge handling the case, then you are going to lose it. And does the RAF at the current moment pay out claims for made by illegal immigrants, just to make that clear? And finally, the one of discovery, I did not understand how they benefit from here. Are they claiming payments from RAF beneficiaries that were their clients? I just didn't understand it properly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let's start with what I did not say, which is that lawyers are colluding with judges. I've not said that. I've not said that. I think it must be quite clear about that. I said most judges were plaintiff attorneys. So they are used to the system working in a certain way. Okay? There might be systemic bias, which is what we suspect. I don't think that we are saying we don't have that evidence. We might have the evidence about systemic bias, but we don't have evidence about the judges colluding with lawyers. That's not what we are saying. We are saying there's systemic biasness. Certain things that ordinarily, I mean, if a judge comes to you and says the RAF is an insurer and says obviously, the only explanation and logically to arrive at that is that this person took their own experience into consideration, not the facts. Because the facts that were sitting in front of them, as I'm telling you, they're all there. That tells you a social benefit scheme. So we are not saying that. We are saying probably it's what we call systemic bias. And systemic biasness has been checked. In South African jurisdiction, we have not seen how they deal with it. We also have got judicial bullying, which other areas, Australia has got something on it, I think the UK, other people have that thing about judicial bullying, where you are told, give us an offer now, otherwise we are going to have a court order against you. Even when you disagree, you bring an application, you disagree, people say, decide now, otherwise this is what we are going to do. We are getting that a lot. Otherwise, then we will then say you must go to prison, then you are in contempt. I think there is a bit of that, but there is no part of us that is saying that lawyers are, because we are represented by lawyers ourselves. We don't say they are colluding, we are saying there is a bit of an area where we think that there might be systemic biasness as a result of that, and that's not. And then, are we paying illegal immigrants? Chances are that. When we started to say to people, can you just show us the stamp? And people just disappeared. We say, the stamp, simple. I mean, you arrived. I mean, I know, I've gone to other countries. If someone says, where is your stamped passport, I'll show them. They will do it. No, what is so, they say, is onerous. How can asking for a passport that is stamped onerous? Unless, of course, you're hiding something, right? So we get things like that. So have we paid? Yes, of course. Like any other insurer, like any other organization, like a SASA, like any other social benefit scheme, okay? There are teachers that are claiming that they are not alive and their children are getting child support grants, and other government employees, people have been caught. So, yeah, we have that as a matter. That's why we insist that we want all that information to be able to do the validation properly. And you see it with what? Once we introduce the minimum requirements, a lot of people did not submit. The number of claims just dropped. Suggesting that it was so easy. I mean, you can just fill in the form, okay? When we started to say to people, RAF used to go out there for direct claims. We can't find even those ones that we ourselves went to, and they came to us as we are sitting. We used to run a RAF on the road where we went to different communities and people will come. They will come on that day. The day you start to say, attach this, then the person disappears. And we know they still exist, but they have disappeared. We can't find, they don't answer their phones. We tried, they have changed their phones. It's very difficult, and it tells you on both sides. So if it was a point at which it was just coming from the lawyer, the represented side, but it's also coming from direct claims, which the RAF instituted itself. And that came with its own challenges. For instance, if this thing was prescribed in our hands, what do we do? Because we have received it, we went, we initiated this claim, and then at a certain point, summons must be issued. What do you do? Can the RAF sue itself? Can it institute and prosecute a claim against itself? It just doesn't work. Yeah, you can see the way it was designed. It was designed in such a way that there will always be a lawyer involved at some point during the claim. So that's what happens. So it's not okay. The discovery thing. Did I understand your question to say, are they saying that people must get money and give them? Yeah. How we picked it up is because they are fighting with one of their members. One of their members receives the money and says, hey, but Discovery is busy saying that. And then when you do not give them that money you receive from RAF, they terminate. They terminate your membership. You no longer belong there. Right? And they denied it. In 2014, I think, I don't know who their CEO was. You must go and check. He was saying, no. We don't have a problem. People are the same. We pay, we do, we never say no. Yeah, even agreements, there's the part where we disagree with them that when you are a social benefit scheme and you have got obligations, those obligations, I don't think that you can just transfer them to other people. I don't think that is fair on us. But you look at that only. You think, there's a problem there. Let me tell you another issue that people would want us to keep quiet about, and I'm going to tell you about it today. There is a thing called public passenger liability insurance. So when you go and get a public, let's say a bus, and you want to operate a bus, you want a license, you are expected to have what's called public passenger liability insurance. Go to any bus and tell me whether there is a part that says, if you get injured in this bus, this is the insurer for you as a public passenger. You have that cover. They've been collecting this money at least since 2008, billions of it. They have never paid a single claim out. And there are 22 insurance companies. We had this from the Financial Services Conduct Authority because we took it there. We said, tell us. And they said, yeah, there are people that run the same thing. We want to also know the claims ratio. The claims ratio is very low. And we said, low can even mean zero. They said yes. But ask anyone who has been injured, either in a bus or a taxi, whether they've ever claimed from anyone except the RAF. You are going to find no. So these guys are using ignorance of our people to collect money every month, but never pay a cent of it. So that's the reality of it. So it's not only these ones. So you are dealing with the whole system. Everyone had their own part that they were playing in, and the person that ends up being the loser in here is the claimant. Because the claimant must be at least starting to claim from there, and probably the rest from RAF, but nothing gets paid by this insurance.
Thank you. I think I'll go back online. We have another question from East Coast Radio. Did he say they've only processed 16 or 60% of claims in the past 2 years? It sounded like 16, but I'd like to confirm, please.
Which part is that?
I'm not understanding which part is that.
It's talking about the
talking about
talking about the target of 16%.
We have got a target to reduce 3 years and older claims by 20% each year. On both years, this past financial year, 23-24 and 22-23, we have achieved only 16%, meaning we were 4% below the target.
Thank
So
you.
we have missed the target by that amount.
Thank you.
It's not 60%, it's 16% out of 20 that we're supposed to, we're targeted.
All right, let's come back to the floor. Is there another question? Roy?
Hi, Roy.
Hello? 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 It's working.
Can hear you.
Okay. I'd like you to actually explain why a passport is so significant in your claims process, because the more crucial documents, to my mind, would be the accident report, which is actually made to the police, and any hospital expenses, which would verify when when it happened and all the rest. So you don't necessarily need the passport.
You must prove that you're in the country at the time of the accident.
Okay. So the belief of Roy is that the passport is not that important.
Immigration
I think that Roy can never be further away from the truth as we know it. And I think, let me read you these provisions of the Immigration Act, because I think it's important that we go back to that. And you tell me how I'm going to, maybe there is another way you know. That's the only way I know. Firstly, the law says it must be within the Republic. So we know a lot of times that, by the way, there have been complaints about people that get injured in that country, in other countries. Zimbabwe, sometimes Mozambique get injured and they use the facilities here. They cross the border, they use the facility in South Africa. So we want to make sure that that injury, even if it's a road accident injury, happened here in the country when you were here. So that's the first part. It must be within the borders of the Republic. I don't even understand why it becomes so difficult. But I think we must start with Section 42 of the Immigration Act. It says, subject to this act and save for necessary humanitarian assistance, no person shall aid, abet, assist, enable, or in any manner help and aid an illegal foreigner. I don't think that there's nothing. So I must know whether you are legal or not. I can't just start. As any person, by the way, any person, including you, when you deal with a foreigner from today, if you are not aware, you must know. So if it's some guy that is there, he wants help, and he's a foreigner, you must just make sure that you are not in any manner aiding or abating or assisting an illegal foreigner. So you must know the status of that person. That is any person in South Africa. Now, Section 44 says, organ of state. When possible, any organ of state shall endeavor to ascertain the status or citizenship of the person receiving the services or its services, and shall report to the department any illegal foreigner or any person whose status or citizenship could not be ascertained, advising through public notice and directly the person consent of such reporting practice, provided that such requirement shall not prevent the rendering of service to a legal foreigner or entitled under the Constitution or any law, including the law of contract. Now, you must be here constitutional. So I can't understand how someone is here illegally but constitutional. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. You are here illegally, but you are constitutionally here. I don't know how the Constitution operates, because the constitution must talk about the law. Okay? The law says you must be here, and for you to be legal in this country, these are the requirements. And I don't think the constitution says you can be here regardless of what the law says. That's not, you can't be illegally here, but then be constitutionally here. Those things are, it's an oxymoron. Okay? So, that's the first part. The second part is that I must assert it. So, how do I assert it? Your status in the country. It's either I'm going to get your asylum permit or something like that, or some sort of a permit that says I'm here legal. By the way, people that are here as applying for asylum, they have got a status. So the status must be known. It's not me, it's the law that says I must know that. So I don't understand, Roy, why you think that I don't need a passport. I don't understand that, because I need a passport to ascertain your status, or any form of documentation that you can give me that says you are here and you were here at the time of the accident, but secondly, to ascertain. What is this thing of people wanting to just ignore the law? When it comes to RAF, we must ignore the law. If I go against the law, I'm sure I'll be in prison by now. But anyone who ignores the law except the RAF is fine. Why are you not asking the lawyers, why are they aiding and abetting illegal immigrants? But in any event, let's go further. Now that they are aiding and abetting them, why don't you ask them how do they pay these guys money? They don't have bank accounts. So where do they pay this money? Once they receive it. I went to a debate with a certain guy on SAFM, and the guy said, we can give them cash. And we know how much cash in South Africa you can actually transact on. There's a limit to what you can. When a lawyer says that, I shiver. Okay? So we can't have a situation where when we have laws as a RAF, we say, but we adhere to this. The issue is what we have. Fight with Section 44. Declare it unconstitutional. And then come and say, but this section is unconstitutional. It's still there. No one has challenged it. But when we then do what, as an organ of state, we're expected to do in terms of the Immigration Act, no. You can't do it. It's really nonsensical. I don't think that, an accident report does not confirm whether you are involved in the car accident or not, actually, as a person. Because it can be anyone. They can actually write my name. They can actually write my name on yours. What stops them? Because how do they confirm this guy? All I'm saying is, here's a guy that is coming in front of us as the Road Accident Fund, wants money of this country, says I was injured here. And we say, yeah, the law says you can be, what do we call it? Compensated. Like our fellow Africans that came here from Botswana. They came here legally. They didn't have a problem with us saying, give us the passport. We went back there. Their families don't have a problem. Give us the passports, whatever. Passports were banned and all that. Then we're going to say, okay, these guys got in illegal. How do? We go to movement control at Home Affairs. We know they entered. This is the vehicle that they were using to enter. It was easy. And people don't have a problem with that. Law-abiding citizens must never have a problem about us asking. Every time I go to the bank, they ask me for my own ID. Are you calling Letsoalo? Yes. Where's your ID? I give them. Then I transact. Same thing. If you are a foreigner in any country, Roy, I'm sure you have traveled. When you arrive there, they say, hey, you want a claim for a VAT refund? Yes. Where are the receipts you give them? Give us your passport. You even when you change foreign currency in that country, where is your passport? You can't say, but you don't need a passport, man. You have got the money. You can see there's $1. You want whatever, we just change it. It doesn't work like that. There is a reason why people must actually present themselves, and there's a reason why they must identify themselves. And there's nothing wrong with identifying yourself and making sure that we know you're in the country at that point. There's nothing to hide. Those ones that have got nothing to hide, they've given us. The ones that have everything to hide, they've not given us. So I don't think that what the accident report would do will negate the need for a passport. The need for a passport will always be there to assist us with adhering to Section 44 of the Immigration Act.
I believe, sir, you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, follow-up, just two quick ones. Mr. Letsoalo, you sound to be at pains to convey like a level of frustration with the law, or should I say specifically the road accident fund. Did I understand you properly to say it was written wrongly, it imposes unnecessary obligations on you, benefit the rich, and possibly foreigners? And then secondly, at the very beginning of your presentation, you said these are social schemes meant for South Africans, but seemingly being exploited by foreigners, and South Africans should do something about it. Do you want to elaborate on that call before we use that short clip and you are seen as being inciting? How can South Africans do that? Are you calling on Parliament to start acting and changing laws? Exactly how?
Let's start with the frustration. I think the frustration is no. And I could see from your expression that you are frustrated by yourself, by section 24.5 that says a claim that is not validated in 60 days is valid in all respects in law. I saw your face, you were shocked. Now, yeah, it's frustrating. Are we frustrated? Of course we are. What have we done about it? That's why the bill is there. Are we saying there are people that we are saying we can't afford as South Africa to do what all the other countries are not doing, which is give you social benefits when you arrive there. That's why when you arrive there, they say, hey, medical insurance. When you are injured, you must get your own medical insurance to pay for you. And you'll be quickly out of that country. They'll stabilize you and they'll send you home. They'll repatriate you quickly, so that you don't end up benefiting. And we are doing the same thing as all the other countries are doing. There's nothing xenophobic about it. Okay? What should South Africans do? You know, we received about 25,000 comments on our bill. Mostly lawyers. Where are you? Where are the claimants? We want your South Africans to come, put your... Parliament is the parliament of the people. It represents you. Even if we have got a piece of legislation, that's why it goes through consultation process. We are just saying, be mindful of the fact that if you do nothing about this thing, this scheme will collapse. Because it won't collapse because of foreigners. It will collapse because of the way anyone has got a head in it. A discovery is there. They are not foreigners. Right? These lawyers we have here are not foreigners. So you can't take this about foreigners. All we are saying is, let's align ourselves to the practices of the global practices. Best practice. Why do we want best practice on other things? But when it comes to RAF, when you say best practice, it's no, it's best practice. When someone comes in South Africa, by the way, there is a reason why foreigners were included in the past. South Africa was under sanctions. The tourism sector was suffering. To attract foreigners to South Africa, they provided this. It's no longer the case. We're like any other country out there. We must do things like all of them. So there's nothing untoward about what we're trying to do. We are just assessing, and we are doing it in line with everybody else. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And someone says, well, there are people that are paying their 218 cents and all that. We say, oh, those are foreign drivers. If you get injured in this country, they are injuring you, they are covering themselves. But in any event, like VAT, when they pay it, they collect it. When they leave the country at OR Tambo, they get the refund. Even this 218 cents, they can collect it as they go. All we are saying is that we can't afford this thing. Because you must understand, it's 150 million rands in dollars. So you can convert it to dollars, but I'm just saying that the costs of administering such a scheme, for instance, we need to take people from out there, bring them back here for assessments and all those things. Even administering that for a foreigner is quite costly to us. Sometimes they tell us things, we need to go and confirm them. We need to go and fly people overseas to go and check. And we are saying it just doesn't make sense. And what we are doing about it is that we have got a bill. And South Africans must look at the bill and say, is it something that is there? Is it favoring the rich? Absolutely. I'm saying it here as a privileged person that has got a job and earns a certain amount of salary, and I'm saying, why should I claim from a social benefit scheme myself? I shouldn't. I can afford to cover myself, so I must cover myself. We can't be sitting here and claiming from every other thing for individuals that can't afford. The social safety net is for those that are underprivileged in that sense. So it can't be that the privileged must continue to benefit from the scheme. That's my frustration.
Thank you, guys. Is there any other question before we close? No more questions. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, here on the floor and those who are watching us online, we've come to the end of the press conference, and thank you so much for supporting us. We appreciate your platform. Thank you.
Meet Dajef. Dajef was involved in an accident, and after submitting his claim, we couldn't get a hold of him because he had changed his contact details. When his details were finally updated and his claim settled, Dajef was able to extend his house so all his children could live comfortably and pay for his daughter's fees for varsity. This was possible because he followed up on his claim, having been unemployed since his accident back in 2018. If, like Dajef, you've submitted a claim before 2021 and need to find out the status of your claim, call the Road Accident Fund on 087-820-1111 or visit raf.co.za to drive your claim forward.